Copper enters the factory as raw cathode sheets. Each cathode is logged and moved into storage. Storage keeps the copper ready for its next stage. The crane carries copper toward the staging zone. Each batch is verified before moving further. Verified copper is cleared to enter the furnace hall. Now, the copper moves toward the melting furnace. The copper moves steadily toward the charging deck. A hoist lifts the copper toward the furnace mouth. A worker steadies the load on its final approach. The furnace waits to receive the copper cathodes. Slowly, the copper is lowered toward the flames. The cathodes slide naturally into the furnace below. Now, the copper begins its transformation by fire. Temperature is carefully monitored as the melt begins. Solid copper slowly gives way to glowing liquid. The copper reaches its full molten state. A thermocouple confirms the copper has reached temperature. Pure molten copper glows at the heart of the furnace. Impurities begin rising to the surface as slag. A worker prepares to clear the surface impurities. Now, the slag will be carefully removed. Slag is carefully skimmed from the molten copper. Impurities drain away, leaving purer copper behind. The purified copper is now ready to be poured. The furnace tilts, preparing to pour the copper. Everything is aligned for the first pour. The signal is given, the pour begins now. Molten copper begins its flow toward casting. Molten copper flows onto the rotating casting wheel. The wheel carries the copper through its first cooling stage. Water cooling helps the copper solidify evenly. The solid copper strip moves into the rolling mill. Rollers shape the copper into a smooth round rod. The copper rod now has its final round shape. The rod is wound into a neat, even coil. The finished rod coil is ready for wire drawing. The copper rod is uncoiled to begin drawing. The rod passes through its first drawing die. A second die reduces the copper further. Lubricant keeps the wire cool during drawing. Multiple dies reduce the copper step by step. The drawn wire winds neatly onto a take-up spool. A worker checks the wire's smoothness and thickness. The drawn copper wire is ready for annealing. The finished spool moves into the annealing line. The wire feeds automatically into the annealing furnace. Heat softens the wire inside the annealing furnace. The wire reaches full temperature for softening. The wire cools and returns to its natural color. Softened wire winds evenly onto a new spool. The spool reaches full capacity and stops winding. The annealed wire is ready for insulation coating. The annealed wire arrives at the insulation line. The wire is threaded into the extruder head. Molten insulation coats the copper wire evenly. The insulated wire cools inside a water trough. A laser gauge confirms the wire's exact thickness. The insulated wire winds neatly onto its spool. The spool reaches its full capacity and stops. The insulated wire is ready for quality testing. The finished spool enters the quality control lab. The wire is connected to the spark testing machine. Each length of wire is tested for insulation faults. Resistance and diameter are checked on a test sample. A passing spool is labeled and cleared for packaging. Approved wire moves onward toward packaging. The batch is officially confirmed and approved. The finished spool is wrapped for protection. The wrapped spool moves into the warehouse. Spools are stacked and organized onto pallets. Finished wire is stored, ready for shipment. Pallets of copper wire are loaded onto the truck. And this is how modern factories produce copper wire from start to finish. Subscribe for more real factory breakdowns.